Hello, mi gente. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Doing this quick video to talk about ethnic studies, right? It's been on the news a lot. Recently, the California State University system will be requiring ethnic studies as a graduation requirement. So incoming freshmen will now have to take ethnic studies classes in order to graduate, at least in one class. That's kind of how I understand it. There's also bills that will make ethnic studies a graduation requirement at the high schools, at the community college. I think UCs already have something similar. And so I wanted to talk about ethnic studies because that's my background. I have a PhD in ethnic studies from UC Berkeley. And whenever I tell people about it, sometimes they don't know what that means, right? So ethnic studies is very much an interdisciplinary field. So within ethnic studies, we have historians, we have sociologists, but we also have people in the humanities that focus on literature or film or theater. So it's kind of a place that houses people with different interests. And what makes it interdisciplinary is that although kind of each person has a focus, like in my case is history, we're always kind of in dialogue with the other disciplines. And what brings us together is our focus on people of color in the United States, right? So ethnic studies focuses on the culture, the history, and the experiences of people of color in the US and beyond, and always kind of making connections to other parts of the world because our histories are very much intertwined, interconnected with the world, right? It's obvious to a lot of us. We also look at race and ethnicity and how that functions in our society. We, of course, argue in ethnic studies that race is a social political construction. It's made up. It hasn't always existed, and it hasn't always existed in the way that it does today. But even though we know it's a construction, we also don't say that it's imaginary because just looking at our society, we see how this idea very much has a big impact on people's lives and their social reality, their opportunities, right? So we look at also at race and ethnicity. In ethnic studies, we're also tasked with providing an in-depth study and analysis of experiences of people of color, not just as problem populations as traditionally has been done in the past, like people have studied, Latinos have studied Blacks as people with problems, right? That's kind of how it used to be. But in ethnic studies, we look at people, at this people of color, at these populations as people that have made tremendous contributions to this country, that have a lot of value, that have cultures that have enriched our society in many ways, right? And so it's not just looking at the negative aspects, but also the positives. And that, that this is a very much central part of US history and of US society. And when we look at the civil rights movement, that's really what African American, Chicano, Puerto Rican, the American Indian movement, Asian Americans, they were all kind of asking and demanding that schools and universities had these type of classes that would respect them, right? That would respect students of color, that would include their voices, right? Their culture, their histories, their realities, and acknowledge that they're very much a part of this society in this country, but not just in a supplemental way, right? Not just to add color and flavor to the curriculum, not just to celebrate certain holidays and bring that food from that culture, right? But we really acknowledge the importance and the essential and central part that these people have played in US history. And when we talk about Native Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, we know that these people are not foreigners. They're not foreign cultures to this country. That they have been in this country since the beginning, and some obviously even before that, like in the case of Native Americans, right? And so when I think about ethnic studies, I think a lot about the good that it did for me, right, personally, and I see the same good in the students that I teach, right. So I see that kind of transformation in a lot of them, and so when I remember my high school experience and first learning about the Chicano, the Black, the Native American movement during the civil rights movement in my history class, I remember feeling very, very passionate and inspired and interested in learning more. And I think a lot of it was because I had a good teacher, Mr. Manuel Lopez, who came from that community as well, and who grew up and had gone to that same high school, and he came back and was teaching there. And so that's kind of, he was kind of an inspiration to me. That's kind of what I wanted to do. Um, and, you know, and I remember learning about this not just as people that were victimized or people that were oppressed, right? I mean, that happened. But what attracted me the most is the history of endurance, of resistance, of resiliency, right? It made me proud of being brown, and it helped me love myself and my community, and really inspired me to try to be an agent of change, of positive change in my community. um, it's not that I wasn't a good student before, because I had always been a good student. I was pretty much a nerd, always into reading, and but just learning about this really made me think about what I wanted to do with my life after high school, right? And in my high school, just so you get an idea, um, it was 98%, over about 98% Latino at the time. It had a high dropout rate, 50%, about 50% of the students that enter freshman year did not graduate. Most of our parents were working class. A large percentage of them were farm workers. My mom worked in the lettuce fields. And so many of us, we were first generation to go to graduate high school even, right? And we didn't really know much about college. But just learning these classes and being in these spaces, I felt like maybe I want to do the same thing for others, right? Maybe I want to go to college and then come back as a high school teacher and teach this stuff to my students. And um, so that was the plan. And eventually I didn't go back to my high school, but I ended up being a college professor, and I am teaching in a very diverse school with a large Latino and Black student population, a good amount of Asian students as well, Filipino, Pacific Islander. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful experience for me. Like I love coming to my work and just engaging and hearing and sharing with students, and also acknowledging and valuing their voice, right? Because I want them to feel what I felt when I was a student. And anyhow, there's a lot that I can say about ethnic studies. There's so much to contribute. Our society needs it for so many reasons, right? But I just thought I would share a little bit about my own experience and why I think it's important, and why I think and hope that why I hope that it will be available to all high schools and all college students as well. All right, thank you so much for listening, and have a good day.